Hi, my name's Ruth from Gothic Decay and I produce work that looks like this. So in this week's episode, wow, that sounds flash, doesn't it? This week I'm going to show you how I back my embroidery. So this is, as I said to you in the last one, this is one of the very first pieces I ever made. So you can see it's backed onto very, very fine fabric. So it's a little bit floppy. I mean, it's slightly stiffened up because of all the dye and ink that I've put on it, but it's just, I'd like it to be a bit more, have a bit more structure. So I've chosen this to back my work. Now I realise I haven't ironed it, but the electrics in my house are not marvellous, so I don't want to risk blowing myself up for just ironing that little bit out, which I will do when we've had the electrician round and it'll all be fine. It'll be fine, honestly. So I cut out this piece of fabric slightly bigger than this piece of fabric. Then turn it over like this and then just fold it in so you've got a little rim. You don't want it to show out the front. So you can see the front fabric here, the front backing fabric. And I'm just going to pin it into place. Now, because, if I remember rightly, this is the top, I know I'm going to have to fold this one down eventually, so don't put this pin too close to this end, otherwise you'll just have to end up taking it out again. Now, this doesn't have to be straight. You can go round wiggly bits like this, you see. Probably just pull that a little bit further out. There we go. So we can do the little wiggly bits to follow because my work is all wiggly really, it's not straight lines and perfect things. So you can just tease it in and out and around and about until you've gone all the way around. So go over to here, and we'll just do the same thing again, tuck it all under. Now you can see here there's a little, oh no it's not, I thought it was a thread from the back. If you find a thread dangling down, just tuck it in behind, make sure it's not poking out the bottom of the, tuck it underneath. See, normally I just use whatever fabric I can find, bed sheets are very good for this sort of thing. But as I say, quite useful for this particular piece because I've made it quite thin, that this is a nice heavy weight of fabric. But I wouldn't normally do it with something like this. See, this is another little problem. It's very frayy fabric, so just stuff it under there. And carry on your way around. I'm not actually going to blow up because of the electrics. I just don't want to risk the iron in a slightly dubious plug until our friend the electrician has been round to see us and make sure we're not going to go bang. And it might give you all a good laugh if there's a bang and a fizz on live on one of these videos, but it'd add to the chaos of the cats and general other curious noises you get to hear. So tuck that under there like this. See, that's a good hard edgy bit there. So now we're all pinned into place. Now all we do, take some sewing cotton and needle, which I've forgotten to find, and we will make, here we are, needle somewhere. Where's one of my nice bent needles? Oh, there's one. There he is. So I always know they're nice and fine because they're the ones I like. So you don't have to have a bent needle, it's just mine bend from use. A nice long piece of thread. See, normally I'll get this all ready for you, but I've been trying to work out planning permission all day today, so brain's a little bit squishy. So we'll tie a nice little knot in the end. Oops. Like that. Then what I would tend to do, I'm going to sit down now so I hope I don't go off the edge, is I would tend to hide the knot in amongst all of this kind of workings in here. So I would pop it through like that, so it's all tucked away and no one can see it, and then pops out just on the very edge of that fabric there. Oh, more sirens again today. Do get some interesting noises in this room, don't you? Right, so all I'm going to do now is do stitches as small as I can make them. So they just tack a tiny bit of the front. Well, basically what you want is for the piece of fabric at the back to hold on tight to the piece of fabric at the front. So if that means doing a big stitch all the way through and catching just one little thread here or there, then that's fine. If it's looking a little bit like it might not hold, well then you could do a stitch all the way through to the front, just a teeny tiny little stitch, and try and make it as invisible as you can. But just keep going like this. There will be the occasional time, for example, we'll say here, this is nicely attached here, but maybe it won't quite attach into there. So just do a little stitch to just in the backing to move your thread along a little bit, but you don't need to fill in every single little bit. Now, I don't know if I've got any on this piece. Yes, there we go. When we get to this bit, for example, see, it's quite flappy. There's nothing attaching that to the backing fabric. So even if I very securely tied the backing fabric down, over time, this would just flap away. So in the corner, just do a little stitch all the way through, as tiny as you can, and all the way back out again. So just a little, like a tiny seed stitch, really, I suppose, to keep the flapping to a minimum. We don't want, I mean, I suppose if you do want to have a piece of work that blows in the wind, well then that's great, but I haven't designed this one to. So I'm just going to go and keep going round here until I've stitched the back to the front. Then I get to decide whether I'm going to use, sometimes I hang my work on a metal pole, or other times I use eyelets. Oh, the metal pole means I use the eyelets, silly me. And other times I slide a piece of plastic through the back and create a little sleeve at the back. So what I'll probably do is when I've done this, I'll decide which looks best. Often if it's a small piece of work, it looks better to me when it's attached to a pole, but we'll work that out in a bit. Anyway, I'm sure you can imagine how this is going. Not so well, because I seem to have turned myself into a knot. But what I'll do is stitch the rest of this down, eventually, and come back to you when it's done and I've untied my knots. Right, so I've got all the way around to the other side, as you can see like that. So I was just going to show you how I finish this off, except I've got the wrong glasses on, so I won't be able to see a thing. Right, quick change of glasses. There we are. So all I do is do a couple of little stitches on the spot. Don't know if you can see that. Hope so. Sorry if my hands are filthy. It's we've been trying to clean out the part of the house. It's particularly grubby and gross, and I've done my best to clean myself up in a house with no shower and no hot water, but I'm still a bit dusty. Right. So a few stitches on the spot like that. Then I take the needle through the fabric, kind of in between, sandwiched between the front and the back, like that, and pull it like that, and then snip it off. If I can find my scissors, giant pair of scissors, like that. So what I have decided to do is sometimes I put eyelets in the top and hang it from a metal pole like that, and other times I make a little sleeve in the back and I put in a piece of perspex. It basically depends on, I find, depends on the size of the piece, and I think this one's just about big enough to get away with a piece of perspex. If it's a small piece, I think that the copper at the top seems to add just gives it a bit more presence, I suppose. But I think this one's just about big enough to get away with it as it is. So what we should do is turn it over. Here is my piece of perspex. I don't know quite what they're for. I believe there's something to do with aquariums, but they were, he was selling them cheap on eBay, so I got some. So I've cut it to length, well, snapped it to length if I'm actually truthful. So it needs to be able to basically be hidden behind here. So I'll take off all this plasticky stuff. I don't know if there's some on the other side. Yes, there is. There we are. That looks better, doesn't it? Like that. Now what I tend to do is make 2 channels down the back using this strip of the same fabric. Yes, I could do one, but I would always put a hole in the centre here, so no, one wouldn't work at all. Sorry, brain death again. I drill a hole in the centre, or sometimes I get James to do it if I'm feeling particularly girly and not very good at it. And basically then I put 2 channels either side. This rather sneakily allows this to move sideways, so you don't have to worry about making sure it's perfectly level and straight, because this will be able to move freely, and you can hang it then ever so slightly to one side or the other, balancing out any wonkiness, which is good for me because despite the kind of embroidery I used to do, I don't know if you've seen any of that, I used to hand embroider birds. I'm surprisingly not a careful, accurate person. So what I shall do is trim this up a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll have one, we'll leave a sort of gap of maybe inch and a half in the middle. So we'll chop one about here. And another one like this. Fold it over like that. And what we will do is we shall stitch one here and one here. So imagine that you've got, I hope that hasn't all gone off the top of the screen. So I tend to try and like to hide the plasticky bit. So I would pull this out, this piece, so it looks approximately straight. So cram them right up to the edge like that. So I think that would be about right. And then what I do is pin it right up to the top and right up to the bottom. So right up close. Well, I suppose the bottom doesn't matter so much, but the top one we shall put into position quite carefully, right up against the edge, because then the edge of the piece that's going up here, because then you can test it to make sure it's straight. Because you can probably see better than I can, because I'm sitting at an angle trying to do this, which is not the smartest of moves. So pop that like, ouch, like that. Like that. And then we pop this. Wiggly, wiggly, wiggle. Why are you being naughty? There we go. Wiggly, wiggly, wiggle. More technical terms for you. Wiggly, wiggly, wiggle. Until it will fit in there like that. Now, I can see from here that that isn't even vaguely straight. But you can see how that would... I didn't think to check it was the top. That was stupid. But the addition of this being able to slide will allow the piece to hang perfectly level. So we shall move this one down a teeny tiny bit. Urk. So it's a bit more level. That one. So it's just a bit of faffing about, but we'll get there in the end. Like this. Now you have to bear in mind that it's never going to be perfectly central because you've got these, you know, perfectly accurate because you've got these pins in. But here we go. Does that seem a bit better now? It's at least going to hold itself approximately level. There we go. So I'll take this out of here. Get some red thread. So you may notice my needles are getting more bent now because I've been working through this thick fabric. God, my fingers are filthy, I'm so sorry. This house is basically a building site, so everywhere I go and everything I touch is filthy. Now all we do is I would come up here like this, away from the edge of that piece, and just stitch it into position. Try to go down as little into this as possible because ultimately this strip is going to lean up against it and you don't want big wonky stitches to get in the way. So yeah, stitch that down there. Stitch along the back, and you can go along the front as well to stop it fraying. Stitch along here, holding both pieces down, and the same up here. And yeah. So I've stitched all the way around these, probably some of the most childish stitching I've ever done in my life, but there we are. And then I took Mr. Drill and made a hole in my piece of acrylic. Ta-da! Like that. So the point being is that when you hang it on the wall, you pop this over a little nail or a hook or whatever it is you want to. If you can't get that to work, then just pop a little tiny piece of string over the top and that will help as well. But that's the best way I've found to get things to hang nicely. So all we do now is pop this in here, like that, and hang it on the wall. So this is how I back my embroideries and attach the acrylic rods. So that's how you manage to get an embroidery that looks like this, unframed, to just mysteriously hang on the wall. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to my page. It would make the world of difference to me. So I shall see you next week for something else. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.